There's this common misconception around spring football that it's a doomed product and that it can't succeed. And we've seen time and time again leagues try and fail, like the AAF, the XFL, both times. The original USFL was pretty successful, but then, failed because they tried to go head to head with the NFL, which was just suicide to begin with. But the new USFL had me really optimistic. I love all these spring football leagues. I watched every XFL, AAF, hell, even FCF games. I own an Orlando Apollo's Keith Reeser jersey, but I digress. The teams that the USFL selected piss me off to no end because it just shows that anyone who is in a position of power in these spring football leagues has no idea what they're doing and doesn't know how to run the team. Let me run through the new USFL teams. The Michigan Panthers, because I guess not even the sports teams want to associate with Detroit. The Birmingham Stallions, the Houston Gamblers, the New Jersey Generals, the Philadelphia Stars, the New Orleans Breakers, the Tampa Bay Bandits, and the Pittsburgh Maulers. Do you notice a glaring issue with all of these except one? Yeah, there are already NFL teams in each of these cities. Well, why is that an issue? Well, this is supposed to be an alternative to the NFL, not compete against it. Right. But when you are putting together a startup company, you need a market to sell your product to, right? Nobody in New York is going to care about a third football team. It's just not going to happen. We saw it with the Guardians in the XFL. They had horrendous attendance, and they just keep making the same mistake over and over. And I don't understand why you'd continue to put these teams in cities that already have NFL teams. And the data backs it up. The AAF had 2 teams that had NFL teams already. It was the Arizona Hotshots and the Atlanta Legends. They finished second and third worst in attendance. Off the top of my head, I believe the St. Louis Battlehawks finished either first or second when it came to XFL attendance. I might be wrong, and the Seattle Dragons might have had better attendance on average, but I know that the St. Louis Battlehawks were the only team that they even considered opening the entire stadium for the games. And that was huge because no other team in the XFL had a shot at filling up the entire stadium. Seattle did have a lot of fans, but the Seattle Dragons were never embedded in the culture of Seattle, which is exactly what you need with teams like this. I remember there was a bar that they decked out completely in St. Louis Battlehawks stuff during the XFL. There was a McDonald's promotion for St. Louis Battlehawks games. You don't want just big cities with a lot of people and pray that there's interest, because then you'll end up with situations like the LA Wildcats. Nobody gives a shit about the Los Angeles Chargers, so why would anyone care about your XFL team in Los Angeles? And the same thing is going on with here in the USFL. It's pretty simple why you wouldn't want these teams, and they just keep doing it. Like Tampa. Tampa was horrible in the XFL. No one cared about the Tampa Bay Vipers, and the Bucks didn't have very good attendance until Brady came. So why would they think that Tampa would support a USFL team? I remember Tampa was one of the more profitable teams back in the day with the USFL, but the data from the original USFL isn't accurate. It's 40 years old. The data from the XFL attendance and teams making money is a year old. So why they'd put a team in Tampa makes no sense. And New Orleans. Yes, New Orleans supports the Saints, and yes, New Orleans supports LSU. You better hope that the New Orleans Breakers are basically the professional version of the LSU Tigers, because otherwise, nobody's going to care at all. The Pelicans are rumored to relocate. Every team outside of the Saints and the LSU Tigers fail miserably in New Orleans. And then the Houston Gamblers. Why Houston? everyone was complaining about the game, or about the name, rather, because I guess gambling is illegal in Texas or something. But that's not even the issue here. I don't have issues with any of the names I feel the need to point out due to the fact that they're reviving USFL brands from back in the 80s, which is cool, brand recognition. That's something very important. But why Houston? The original USFL had a San Antonio team, and when the AAF had the San Antonio Commanders, they had better attendance than the Chargers. So why would you put a team in Houston that already has an XFL and an NFL team? And as of right now, the XFL is still supposed to come back, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. The Pittsburgh Maulers, I'm going to make a bold prediction right now and say that the Pittsburgh Maulers are going to finish second in attendance in the USFL behind the Birmingham Stallions, because Pittsburgh, they just love football in Pittsburgh. Steelers fans show up, so I feel like they'll probably have moderate success, but they're not going to have as much success as they would in a city that doesn't have an NFL team, because they are always going to play second fiddle to the Steelers, and you need to put these teams in a place where they are the biggest thing. Philadelphia Stars, Philadelphia has really passionate fans. I don't know if they'll show up for this or not. I doubt it, because they're not the Eagles. New Jersey Generals, I'll kind of give this one a pass, because people can find a sense of New Jersey pride in this team, similar to the New Jersey Devils, even though I assume they're going to play at MetLife Stadium. It's just nice that they're not called New York. And with Generals, I'm accepting with that, because when I think of the original USFL, I think of Donald Trump, Herschel Walker, and the New Jersey Generals. That just adds a extra layer of brand recognition for me, so I'm cool with that. And Michigan Panthers, I talked about earlier, it just sounds like they don't want to be associated with Detroit. But fun fact about the Michigan Panthers, everyone's going to sit here and say that the Michigan Panthers are copying the Carolina Panthers, when in reality, the Michigan Panthers existed probably like a decade before the Carolina Panthers. Anyway, but my favorite team, and the team that's going to make by far the most money, I guarantee it, I will bet everything I own that the Birmingham Stallions financially are the most successful team in the USFL. You know why? Because Birmingham likes football, but they don't have any professional football. What you need to do is you need to load this Birmingham Stallions team up with former Alabama, Auburn, and UAB players, and I guarantee you people are going to show up. Oh, well, if you're so smart, what are the 8 cities you would have chosen? He says with a seamless audio transition. Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's pretty simple. First off, as I said earlier, Birmingham, perfect. Congrats, USFL. Pat yourself on the back. You got one right. But outside of that, for the rest of the 7, I'm going San Diego, St. Louis, and Oakland. You know why? Because the NFL screwed all 3 of them out of their respective teams, the Raiders, Chargers, and Rams, to send them to Los Angeles and Las Vegas, so they would show up, if nothing else, just to spite the NFL. They were chanting F Stan Kroenke at St. Louis Battlehawks games. The same thing's going to happen in San Diego and up. 1, to watch football again, and 2, just to spite the NFL. Next, we're going Orlando and San Antonio. Keeping with the theme of Birmingham, we're, using the AAF's kind of experiment. Orlando and San Antonio both showed team support. San Antonio, obviously, a lot more. And I've kind of mentioned it earlier, they had better attendance than the Chargers. So yeah, bring Orlando and San Antonio back, both of which also had original USFL teams, so you don't have to get a new team name. And then Omaha, the little-known UFL, had a team called the Omaha Nighthawks, and they had a lot of fan support. It really surprised people with how much support they got. I believe they were the only team that turned a profit. So Omaha has proven that they like football and will come support it. So give them a shot. Bring in a team in Omaha, and I'm sure people will love it. And then for my 8th team, I'm going to go with Memphis. Back in the day, they actually had an NFL team for a very short time in the Memphis Oilers, as the Oilers were making the transition from Houston to Tennessee. They played a short period of time in Memphis, and it was kind of a disaster because they didn't feel like a Memphis team. They were only there temporarily, and people in Memphis hate Nashville, so it just felt like they were there for a Nashville team, and it didn't feel like their own. So bring back the Memphis Showboats, another original USFL team, and really give Memphis something of their own. And make sure you have some Memphis Tigers players there. Put Paxton Lynch at quarterback or something. And I'm sure Memphis would love to have a football team. A lot more than, I don't know, Philadelphia.